Hi, it's me, Clara, and today I'm going to be talking to you about a different kind of game that maybe you're familiar with or you haven't heard about. This is Horrified. This is where you and up to four other players, are going to be facing off against the class Hollywood monsters. So, this is what is known as a cooperative game. It's called cooperative game because you guys are playing together against the board game. You are the villagers fighting against the monsters. So there is no against each other. You either win together or you lose together. So I'm going to go over the components of the game first, and then we're going to talk about how to start, gameplay, how to win, how to lose, etc. So you can choose between 6 different heroes, or 7 different heroes, and you'll get one of these little character stands, and you'll get one of these character cards. On the character card, it will tell you how many actions you can take per turn, your special action, your title, and your starting location. So the professor will start at the hospital. So I have him at the hospital. Now, if you'll notice that the mayor has no special action because she can move 5 places. That's her special action. She gets to move further or do 5 different actions as opposed to everyone else doing 4. And there is one character that only can do 3 actions, but that's because her special action is she can teleport to anywhere on the board. So she's a little overpowered. So you can choose between 1 and 7 different heroes. You can also choose to face between 1 and 6 different monsters. They actually recommend that you face off starting with 2. That's the easier phase. If you want to test your mettle, you go off against 3, and if you really want a hard game, you're going to go off against 4. So they have monsters such as Dracula. They have the creature from the Black Lagoon. We have the Invisible Man, the Wolf Man, the Mummy, and Frankenstein and his bride. Frankenstein and his bride, actually, you face off against both of them. So if you're going to be using that as one of your monsters, that's going to make it even harder game. So 4 is not enough. Throw them into the mix. Now, each monster on their card, on the back of their card, it'll tell you all of the starting requirements for each of the different monsters. It'll tell you how to set it up. It'll tell you any kind of special rules concerning them. And it shows you all the different monsters you can face. That's on the back of each of these. On the front, you'll see 3 or 4 parts to the card. First, you see their number. That tells you if their ranking. So if you're facing off against Dracula, his ranking is number 1. And then he's considered enraged. He is the highest enraged token. You'll have this little part in the corner, which will tell you, it tells you when you roll the dice, if you roll an exclamation point, which we'll go into more detail later, then this will happen. You want to you want to finish the first advance. So each monster has certain tasks that you have to do to make them vulnerable for defeat. So for the Invisible Man, you have to take one of these tokens, which are throughout the board, and I'll go into a little bit more detail later, and you have to take them to the precinct, and they have to each have the name of the city on it. And once you have all 5 of those on his board, you get to move to the second advance phase. And that is, you have to fulfill the bottom requirement, be in the same space with them, and defeat them. So each creature has its own requirements. The Invisible Man, you have to bring evidence of his activity from throughout the city. For Dracula, you have to find all 4 of his coffins throughout the city, destroy them, and then face off against him because he has nowhere else to hide, and you have defeated Dracula. The creature from the Black Lagoon, You are handing these in and you're moving a boat closer and closer to his secret lair. And when you get to his secret lair, then you can defeat him. For Frankenstein and his bride, you're trying to remind them of their humanity. So they have a clock dial, and once you get them all the way to the top of the power, you remind them of what they used to be, and then you're able to bring them peacefully together and send them on their way. For the Wolfman, you're finding a potion to cure him. And for the Mummy, you're trying to find the code that will break the mummy's curse. So each game will feel different because each villain has a different requirements. And if you face off the different ones, it could be for different games. What else you get with the game are you will get these information cards, which will tells you all of the actions that you can take during the hero phase. So if you're the mayor, you can take a combination of 5 of those. Now, to move from one space to the next, that is one action. So if you want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's all of her actions, because one action per move. Some of the other actions that you can do is, let's say you are in space with a villager, which are the gray tokens. They want to go somewhere specific. So this professor, he wants to go to the museum. The museum is down here. So you have the ability to guide a villager one space away or one space towards you. That's one action. Now, I told you movement is one action, but a free action is if you are in space with a villager and you're moving, you can pick up that villager and it does not cost you anything extra to then move them. So the mayor could go 1, 2, 3. He got to where he wants to go. He is off the board and happy, and you get yourself one of these cards, and I'll explain what they are in just a moment. The other actions that you can get or do are these items, or these item tokens, are throughout the board, and I'll tell you more about them to get them on the board. You have the ability to pick one up. That is an action. Now, if you are in a space that has multiple items on there, picking them up, you pick all of them up. That is one action. So if there's 4 there, you pick it up, that's one action. If there's 1 there, that's one action. Share items. If you are in the same space with another player, you can take one action to share. And much like being able to pick up 4 items and it be one action, as you're doing the share action, you each can hand off different items. That's all one action. Advance. Advance involves when you're facing off against the monster. So let's say the mayor is here. She would advance by handing in items that total 6 to crack and destroy his coffin. And then you would take the coffin and you would put it over here on his sheet to show that you have defeated that. You have advanced that action. Then the next thing you can do is defeat a monster. That is when you have done everything in their first advanced section and then you go up against them. So let's say you've destroyed all the coffins of Dracula. You have to have 6 total of the yellow items, and then you advance, you take the action, and then you have defeated Dracula. He goes back off into the night, and then this Enrage Token moves to the next monster with the lowest number, and then you try and defeat that monster. Once you have defeated all of the monsters that you are facing, you guys win! So that's the only way you can win. Let's talk about these item tokens, just so you kind of understand them. You'll notice there's a cute little picture on it of the item. There's a number at the top, and there is a title or place location on the bottom. So that tells you when you pull it out of the bag, you're going to put it wherever it says on the bottom. Now the top part matters because a lot of these monsters have requirements where you have to have so much power. So you need to have, for Dracula to destroy his coffins, you need to have red items that total power is 6. That could be one of them. This gun or revolver has 6 at the top, so you would just need this. But at the barn, we have a pitchfork and a torch. The torch is 5, the barn is 4. So you would have to hand both of those in to destroy a coffin. You don't get to keep, so I know 5 plus 4 is 9, but you don't get to keep that 3. So those are the tokens now, and I'll explain how you get them on the board. The other things that you need to know about are the monster cards. I have 3 different ones picked for different reasons. Each round you'll pull one of these monster cards. So the first one with the swamp thing, you'll notice at the top there's a number. That tells you how many items you're going to draw from the bag and put out. So that says 0, so this round you do nothing. Then the part that explains an action for the monster tells you the swamp thing goes back to his lagoon. You do whatever that says if the monster's in the game. And I'll show them the Frankenstein one. We're not facing off against Frankenstein. So when we pull the Frankenstein card, we put out the number of items that it says at the top. We ignore the action concerning Frankenstein and his bride because they are not monsters that we are facing. And then we move to the bottom part. Now the bottom part is very interesting because it shows you the little monster icons, which match up to the little monster icons in the back and on the back of here. So you will go from left to right, and each monster token that shows, that monster triggers. And then the little fire flame, that tells you that's the enraged monster. So they sometimes go twice. Very rarely do they ever go 3 times. They go twice. And then the little arrow pointing further along tells you how many spaces that monster moves. And let's talk about monster movement. The swamp thing is the only one that can move on these water spaces. So he can go 1, 2, he can go 1, so that he can only move along the water spaces. So he will go here. And if there is a player there, he will attack. If there is an NPC, so he's in the lagoon, and there's an NPC at the Abbey, and then there is a villager at the Abbey, and then a character player is at the mansion, he is only going to move 1 space, so he's not going to go to the empty space. He's going to move towards that villager. Now, if the mayor was 1 space away, he's always going to move towards the villager. If there are 2 players, and he's 1 space away, the players get to choose which direction he goes. So they can go to, they say, well, let's go to the mayor, because we'll say the mayor has 2 items. This is important because the next part tells you how many dice they're going to roll when they attack you. So, what does it say on that one?
2.
2. So I would roll 2 dice. Oh, if you see the little gunshot, they look like a gunshot, that's a wound. That means he hit her twice. Just show all the spots. If you see the exclamation points, that creature's exclamation point on their card would trigger. So for the swamp thing, if we had, you would move, if let's say we had gotten up to here on the boat, you actually move it back 1. That's what his exclamation point does. If you have an empty side, nothing happens. But if you do roll those wounds, because the players really don't have much health, but they can hand over, so if you hit her twice, she can hand over 2 items, discard them, and she absorbs the blows. You have the choice. So let's say she has that final amount of items that she needs to defeat Dracula, and she's on her way to defeat Dracula. She can decide to take a hit, go down to the hospital. This doom token goes up 1 because a player got knocked out, and she gets to keep her items. If you don't have any items, or you only have 1 item and they roll 2 hits, you might as well just keep the item because you can discard 1 item, but you still take 1 hit and you get knocked out. If he successfully attacks a villager, they immediately get knocked out of the game and your doom token goes up. Now, I will explain what the doom token does. The doom token, when it gets to the skull at the very bottom, so the white part, you lose. That's the players lose. Too many people have taken damage. The monsters have just done too much terror in the night, so the villagers have given up all hope and they lose. If you took a wound and you get knocked out at the beginning of your next turn, you're like off the board. At the beginning of your next turn, you start down at the hospital, and then you have to do your turn from the hospital. So that is there's one other card that we need to talk about. There are these cards where when this comes up, again, you put out the tokens that are at the top, and then this bottom part tells you of a villager that wants to go out. So it'll tell you who the villager is. So I have one that says place Wilbur and Chuck at the shop. So I'm going to find their token and put it at the shop. And then at the bottom of their token tells you where they want to go. So Wilbur and Chick, I'm sorry, it's Wilbur and Chick, want to go to the dungeon. So once you get them there, you'll get a perk card. So those are the monster cards. Those are the three kinds of monster cards you will see. And remember I told you there's lots of ways to lose, but there's only one way to win. Well, another way to lose is if you get to the bottom of this deck and it's a point in the game where you have to draw a card and there is no card to draw, you lose. So you can lose by running out of cards or moving the doom tracker all the way over before you defeat all of the monsters. Now let's talk about the perk cards. They will all, when you get a villager to their desired place, you will get a perk card. You will also get a perk card in the very beginning of the game. When we're handing everything out, each player will also get one perk card. The beauty about the perk card is when you use it, it does not count as one of your actions and you can use it anytime. So since we're working together, we can all say, well, I have a perk card that allows me to place any hero in a non-water space. The one that he's showing you is it tells you you could either move that specific monster to any space that you want or any other monster 3 spaces away from where you're going to go. So if the monster from the Black Lagoon can move 2 spaces, he's going to be moving towards the villager, 1, 2. Someone can immediately go, oh, I'm using my perk card and I want to move him 3 spaces away. So now when he moves 2 spaces, he doesn't quite make it to the villager. So you can use him at any time. Every player can use them in 1 turn if you want, and you get new ones every time you get that villager to the place that they want to go. So the perk cards are extremely helpful, and the beauty about them is if you make your way through them, it doesn't mean you lose. You just shuffle them up again and then you have more perk cards. I've never seen a game where that has happened, but I guess theoretically it is possible. So we've talked about the items, we've talked about the cards, we've talked about the monsters and the characters and the villagers and the dice. So let's talk about setup. When you start the game, you choose your monsters. You can choose them at random, or you can decide together as players who you want to face off. So I have it set up that it's Dracula and it is the creature from the Black Lagoon. You can choose your characters, again, randomly, or you can decide which ones you want to play. However, if you want to make it a little bit more challenging, or if you just want to learn the game together. So once all that's done, you're going to put the monsters wherever they're on the back of here tells you that they go. Some of the characters or monsters will have like an extra piece that will go over that location. So the creature from the Black Lagoon, you're going to add this camp card to the camp, and it'll just give you directions for if you are facing this monster and you go to this location, this is what you can do. For the Black Lagoon, you can go there and you can drop off any color token, and based on which color token you do will how far up you. That'll be set out. You put the Doom token at 0. You take the Enrage token and put it on the monster that is the lowest number for the Enrage. Each player will get one of these cards. You will put them at their starting location. You will choose 12 randomly and put them on the board. And then we will start. And each hero, you guys can decide who goes first. There is no way to say, oh, well, this person always goes. And you can decide in what order you want to go. It does not have to go clockwise because you guys are working together. So you can sit there and look at the board. You can discuss what you want to do, the best ways to get to wherever it is you need to go. So you guys get to decide who goes first, who goes second, or however many, up to 5 players. Then you're going to do all of your actions. You can do one of each, or you can do multiple ones. Like I said, you can move 4. You can use your special action multiple times as well, but they're each different ones. So the professor can move any hero or villager 1 space. Doesn't have to be adjacent, could be anywhere on the board. The scientist abilities, they get to add 1 strength to any item. And then, like I said, the mayor just gets to move. So they will take turns doing their actions. And then at the end of their turn, once they've done all 4 actions or all 5 actions or however many actions they have, the next thing that happens is the monster phase. You're going to draw one of the monster cards. You're going to put out the new items so this is a number 3. You're going to do whatever it says in the middle. So for this one, I would put them starting at the shop. And then Frankenstein, he's not on the board, he does not trigger. Bride of Frankenstein, not on the board, so she does not trigger. But the enraged monster, which is Dracula, gets to move 1 space. So he's going to be moving out of his starting space. And then there's nothing there. There's no one to attack, so nothing happens. They don't roll the 3 dice because there's no one there. That would be the end of the monster phase. Then we go to the next hero phase. And you keep going until you either defeat all of the monsters, the Doom token goes all the way till the skull, or you run out of cards. And that is Horrified.